Overthinking is something that I definitely struggle with. I know a lot of people are paralyzed by overthinking and their thoughts, but what does overthinking have to do with the heart? And why is the heart called the second brain?
So, first of all, ladies, when I came across all this information, it just blew me away. I think that we feel the power of our heart in some ways. In daily life, we may say, put your heart into this, or we feel connected to the heart. But what a lot of us forget, first of all, as mothers, we notice on the ultrasound, the first thing that comes is that heartbeat, right? Before the brain is formed. So there's this type of intelligence that's guiding the creation of that fetus, even before the brain is formed. So when I was researching my last book, which is You Are More Than You Think You Are, I came across some really incredible information and studies and research, some of which is published in the American Journal of Cardiology, some of which has to do with hormonal regulation, which we could talk about in a moment. About the heart is this type of, it is a brain. It has 40,000 neurons, first of all, which is something most of us don't realize. So when we're talking about neuroplasticity, when we're talking about intelligence, we're talking about the vagus nerve and gut health, there is this whole other access point of intelligence in the heart. Once we learn to tap into the heart's power, it really changes everything. We can transcend confusion. We can transcend gut issues. We can have a lot more clarity, a lot more intuition. And this takes place over 5 heart stages, which were laid out in ancient wisdom in Vedic times, and they correspond to the science of heart coherence or heart-brain communication, which we can dive into.
I got goosebumps when you said when you're pregnant, the heart is the first thing that you see before the brain is developed. I mean, that's so beautiful. And it's unfortunate that in schools and just how we're raised naturally in our modern society, like no one teaches you how to connect with your heart. And one thing that, with women health experts that we have week over week, one thing that really stands out is how we need to all manage our stress better. And that's like foundational in so much. So I'm just curious, what are maybe some of the tools that you've kind of come across that you've seen really help people when it comes to that stress and overwhelm and anxiety that so many of us deal with?
Yes. So, Yasmin, you said something really interesting. You said modern society, right? So, I want to take a step back for a moment and acknowledge that all ancient cultures, most all ancient cultures really valued the heart as this gateway, this power center, and they saw it as something more, as a physical organ. So when we're talking about this heart work for stress management, for hormonal regulation, we're talking about the physical heart and also the energetic heart. So if you look at the Egyptians, they didn't take the heart out of the mummy because they believed it was needed in the afterlife. The Babylonians, the Greeks, all talked about the heart. And then all religions, right? There's the Sacred Heart of Jesus Christ, the Anahata Chakra in Hinduism, the Heart Sutra in Buddhism, Kalb mentioned throughout the Quran, and then Lev in the Torah. So there's been this ancient emphasis. And only in modern times have we gotten into, Kaya, as you're talking about, overthinking, very linear, very brain, everything's nootropics, brain training, brain, which is important. But actually the heart and the brain can work together. So what you're talking about, Yasmin, what I'm talking about here when I talk about the 5 hearts in the hidden power of the 5 hearts, it's not minimizing the effects of stress. It's actually learning to bypass the stress response in the first place. So stress isn't the actual thing. It's not the rain or the traffic or whatever's happening at work. It's our thoughts. So what happens when we go in to access our heart intelligence, which is really turning on the heart's wisdom, learning to access these 40,000 neurons through these tools and techniques, you actually start to change your perceptions. When you change your perceptions, then you change your thoughts. Then you're able to flow with life instead of going into what is called resistance. And that's what the stress is. Resistance is, I'm upset. This didn't happen the way I wanted it to. I don't like this. My favorite cafe is closed. I can't get my coffee. That's what's creating the stress and ultimately imbalancing our hormones and creating, so much depletion in our vitality. So there's a research study in the book that I want to share around hormones specifically, and the stress hormones, and also DHEA, which is such a powerful hormone for women. It's also related to fertility. What's powerful about this is without drugs or any sort of biohacking tool or any sort of, if anyone could see this, or I'll say the results. This was using the heart tools, the heart aligned tools. And we did a research study, and I can teach some of these simple tools here. In 1 month, ladies, 1 month of doing these techniques, cortisol went down 23% and DHEA went up 100%. Again, this is critical for fertility, energy, bypassing stress, anxiety. This all
Longevity.
longevity, this all happened from within, right? So in the first chapter, which is known as the dark heart, I discuss what's called the heart aligned meditation. And this is, and we did a research study with the Heart Math Institute. We took 30 people into LA and we measured their HRV patterns and their statistics. And all they had to do was do this 8-minute meditation 4 times a week. And in 30 days, there was a 29% increase in coherence. So coherence means that hormonal management. It means that we're more clear. It means that, we have more focus. We have more energy. All these different biomarkers, immunity goes up. This was from learning to activate these neurons in the heart and turning on the heart-brain communication. Because so often, Yasmin, to your question around stress, something happens and a trigger goes off in our amygdala, which is the part of our brain that stores emotional responses. So like someone says this, it reminds me of this, issue or this wound from my childhood. And we're constantly being triggered and stressed and going into that sympathetic system overdrive. When we go into the heart and we learn to break that pattern, now we start to create neuroplasticity between the brain, the heart. We can start to create different neural networks. So we start to break these patterns, which means over time we become more resilient, heart resilient, and we don't go into as much stress.
Wow, that's so interesting. And I want to kind of jump ahead, but I think it'll help people who are hearing about all this for the first time. We talk about coherence, and then what are some signs, and you kind of already mentioned it here, maybe being triggered or being very reactive or kind of living in the past or whatever it is. But what is heart coherence exactly? And what are signs that we're not living in a coherent state?
Yes. Okay. So I'll use this analogy, and I use this in the book. Imagine that we're swimming from one shore to the other in a lake, right? Lake house, summertime. We're going from one shore to the next. Coherence is, imagine you're swimming across and like enjoying the sun on your back, and you're just breathing and it feels great. And then you get to the other side. Incoherence. Imagine you're swimming, you start to get annoyed, your goggles are fogging up, you stop, you kind of clean out your goggles, then you forget which direction you're going in. Maybe you hit a rock, you scrape your knee, you go the wrong way, you come back. So incoherence is when we're feeling like that frustration. Things aren't really working. Coherence is when we're like a smooth flowing machine. Everything feels harmonious. So coherence is essentially when there is aligned communication between your heart and your brain. In daily life, it's those days or those moments or those mornings or those periods where you just feel like you're not overthinking. You're just flowing from one thing to the next, right? You're brushing your teeth and you're getting your tea and things are in sync. And we can learn to train ourselves to get into this state. It doesn't have to be random or something that happens at certain times. We can learn to actually strengthen this heart-brain communication. And when this happens, we feel differently. Again, our perceptions change. We feel differently. Our hormones are different. Our immunity is different. Our gut health, our vagus nerve connection can be different. So our digestion is better. And we can just have so much more peace and fulfillment in our lives. So what the ancients were talking about, this power of the heart, and now what science is reinforcing in this heart-brain communication is actually talking about the same thing. So the 5 heart stages that I talk about in the book, which are dark, propelled, steady, devoted, and clear, means we're going from incoherence, the dark heart, the heart and brain really aren't communicating. So you'll experience a lot of frustration in your life, a lot of confusion. You don't know what your purpose is, lots of drama in your relationships. Things feel so hard, lots of just fighting or chaos, all the way to heart-brain harmony. And this is called the clear heart. And this is just when our lives feel so much more in sync and turned on. Our relationships become really deeply fulfilling and connected, including our relationship with ourselves. And of course, this spills out into our work, into our abundance, into our levels of success. We have so much more emotional intelligence. So it affects everything in our lives.
Wow. I want to talk about the practicality of this a little bit, because so often what I notice is that first there's the thought, and then the thought triggers the heart's response, which is, oh, that person said that to me, or, oh, I have to do something scary today. My heart starts racing. I feel anxious. I don't feel good. what are maybe some practical ways we can reverse that, or maybe start with the heart, or how does that exactly work?
Yes. So Kaya, even before that thought, there's a perception, right? So like I perceive this as something I don't like, right? This is coming from the linear mind. This is what I call in the book, the unbridled horse. The ego can feed you the mind, thousands of thoughts, thousands a day, many of which are untrue. I perceive that person left a comment on my social media that was snarky. I perceive it. So then the thought comes. I don't like this. I feel judged. I feel this, right? The thoughts actually come after the perceptions. So what we do, practically speaking, and I'll teach you some really preliminary things right now, even as we're talking and everyone listening to this. So we're really present. You may be driving in your car. I'm staring into your guys' eyes. You may be staring into the eyes of your child or cooking dinner, whatever you're doing. Bring part of your attention to your heart right now. So you can actually touch your heart, which is what I teach in the children's book on the same subject we wrote called Chilla Gorilla and like a lemur journey to the heart. Or you can just put some of your awareness. This alone, which is so simple and yet so powerful. Research published in the American Journal of Cardiology shows that this starts to rewire your nervous system. Now it's not just getting stuck in the endless thoughts. We're starting to activate these 40,000 neurons pairing up with the neurons in your brain. So even just by doing this, and this builds like a muscle over time, you start to feel what the heart's wisdom is like. Heart intelligence feels more expansive. It's more grounded, right? And so from this place, your perceptions change. From this place, we're able to find more unity. It's like zooming out and seeing the bigger picture. Like, oh, maybe that person actually is having a bad day. And this isn't really about me. So when you have that perception versus this person's attacking me, your thoughts are different. You actually become more compassionate or caring, or you're not going into that stress, fight or flight. You stay more in rest and digest. See what I mean? So there's this literally this expansiveness. You're not going just into the amygdala's reactivity. So what this means on a scientific level is there's a heart language. The heart actually sends more messages to the brain than vice versa. So when you're coming into this type of language and you're starting to become more coherent, you're sending different messages to your brain. Messages that are, hey, I'm safe and secure. I'm anchored here. We can figure out a way. It feels like zoomed out. And this also, there's so much research about turning on the heart intelligence creates more emotional intelligence. This directly means more success. This is more important than IQ in our daily life. It means we can communicate better. We can hold healthy boundaries, but communicate our needs. So there isn't so much turbulence in our day-to-day, practically speaking, Kaya, with our families, in our little interactions, at work, with people we come across in the supermarket, right? There's a very different thought pattern if we feel like that person's pushed in front of us in line versus, oh, maybe she didn't see me, or maybe she's really in a rush to get back to her child, or, hey, this doesn't have to bother me so much. We stay much more resilient, hormonally balanced, and our vitality grows over time. So that was one quick practice. That's the very preliminary as we start to reconnect. And then as we go into the heart aligned meditation, there's something called the heart aligned harmonized method, which is in the second heart stage, the propelled heart I teach, which you do in the middle of life in under a minute. So these are really practical practices. Some are 3 to 10 seconds. You start to turn on the heart's power in your daily life, so you don't go into that same old pattern that you may have been playing out for many years.
So I'm just so curious, and I'm sure you go into detail with all of this in your book. So I love the idea of doing something quick to kind of disrupt that pattern. So like Kaya was saying, you feel bothered by something, you feel kind of the elevation of your heart. What is something that we can do then that you mentioned, in 3 to 10 seconds to kind of rebuild that pattern of not having that anxious feeling or that fight or flight feeling that we can all just easily be stuck in?
Since it's the second heart technique, there's a lot more in the book that sort of builds up to that deeper understanding in the science. I will say this, Yasmin, that 8-minute heart aligned meditation, and there's tracks on our website at mysolluna.com. What it does is it builds your coherence capacity, so you can come back to that coherence faster and faster. So we shift to the heart. you do this specific coherence inducing breath. So it's a specific breathing technique where we're focusing on the heart. You're breathing in a certain way. And then we shift into appreciation. And so appreciation is a mix of gratitude, awe, approval. Why appreciation? So I want to show you guys this graph, and this is on page 29 in the book. It's not, oh, this feels nice. See, this is the HRV pattern of someone in anger. This is the HRV pattern of someone in appreciation. You see these smooth sine waves? This is your breathing. This is your heart rate. This is everything in your body. This is where the psychological becomes the physiological. You're inducing that deep shift, Yasmin. So now you're in this much more resilient place where you're not so reactive, right? These heart-based emotions create coherence in your body. They start to sync up your heart and your brain. When you are in a triggered state, and just in life in general, it is much more easy to access appreciation. Even when you're feeling angry or you woke up on the wrong side of the bed, it's your dog or your child or that beautiful sunset. You can recall that much easier than peace or love or compassion or some of the other heart-based qualities. So you want to start to create that shift. This is where the psychological becomes the physiological, right? This is where the physical, the emotions, the mental, everything starts to work together. So you're in a very different state where you're feeling appreciation. So this is experiential. This heart-based work on coherence, you will experience it in your body. This is how you change your life, the energy in the moment that you're embodying. Sometimes we hear these things like write a gratitude list or let me list off things I'm grateful for. We can do that from the mind and not really feel it. But when you're doing these practices, and I have these guided tracks, and again, there's a lot more in the book about this, you're actually embodying this energy. And it's measurable on the M-Wave Pro, the heart math equipment, which is really specialized and so sensitive. You can actually start to feel a different energy in your body. And it's in this moment you create more health. It's in this moment that you start to shift your hormones. It's in this moment you start to change your perceptions, which change your thoughts. So this is very experiential. It's very embodied. There's some practices, there's some meditations which are disassociative, right? Like, let me imagine I'm at a waterfall or somewhere where my body isn't. And that can feel relaxing or nice. But this work, ladies, this is about coming into power in your life. Your heart is right here, the center. Your heart is where you can change your relationships, change your body, change your health, change everything. So we want to be right here. Heart coherence is bringing your power into this moment. And that's what these tools do.
I love that. I love that you use the example of being in the supermarket because that literally happened to me yesterday. I'm in the I'm at Whole Foods and I'm with my daughter and this guy with a huge bike and he's like keeps cutting me off and I'm like, dude, I'm about to yell at this guy. Like, what is his problem? But even when you're talking right now, I'm like, you know what? Like, take a deep breath. Like, maybe he was having a bad day. He forgot his bike lock. He had to lug his bike around the store. So, that is one place that I get triggered for sure. I want to talk about actually what heart rate variability is. It's definitely gained more popularity in the past few years, but for somebody who's never heard of it, what is it? And then does this type of work require somebody to measure their heart rate variability, or can they do it without doing that?
Yes. So there's so many amazing things you just said. I want to back up for a second. Your example in the supermarket with the man and the bike and your child. This is where I want to point out to people, because sometimes most of us don't know. I didn't know that these micro moments are actually not micro moments. 2 minutes of irritation. Let's say, ooh, like, why is the light taking so long? Or, ooh, like this happened to the supermarket. Put into process 1,500 chemical processes, which ultimately will drain your energy. And this research study in the book, this is on page 35. See this graph? This was 5 minutes of recalling, not actually being in anger, but in the research study, they asked someone to recall something that made them angry. And 5 minutes of something that they cared about, let's say their kitten or their son or whatever. 5 minutes, ladies, of recalling the anger. This is measuring IgA, which is a biomarker for immunity. It was down for 6 hours. That means feeling that those little moments deplete you for at least 6 hours. So imagine if you're feeling little moments of irritation throughout the day and you don't have the tools for bringing in that coherence. I don't care if you're spending $2,000 a month on, biohacking programs or tools or supplements or going to the spa sometimes or doing these fancy retreats. It's the little moments in our day that create our health, our hormonal balance, our energy. This is what we really need to pay attention to, and we need to have those tools. And again, what's amazing about these heart aligned tools, they create that your capacity builds when you do the meditation, and the tools help bring you back. So your new default is to be more coherent. And I've experienced that personally. I used to get so annoyed by little things. I'd have these big meditations in the morning. And then in daily life, I'm like, I felt so good in the morning. Or like, things happen with small children. I have a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old. So now that I'm able to stay more coherent, bring myself back, I can't tell you how much it's changed. I just feel not exhausted at the end of the day. There's just so much more connection and peace in my family because, your coherence makes your children more coherent. So I just want to say I'm so passionate about sharing this because I really feel for our health. I want people to know that it's all these little moments that add up, and there's really something that you can do about it. Now, back to your question, Kaya, about the HRV. So heart rate variability was actually discovered and talked about for the first time in the 1990s by the Heart Math Institute, the very people doing this, a lot of the research that this book is based on. And so what they found was it was a way to measure basically your resilience and your health. Without getting into all the specifics, you can feel it's tied to how coherent you are in your day. So it's something an athlete can have a really strong HRV, but then may be emotionally more turbulent. Although I know some athletes that are really emotionally resilient and they have great HRV, and that may be part of why they're so successful. So it's something that we measured in our study, not with, an Oura ring or some of these these wearables, which can use different algorithms, but really sensitive equipment from the Heart Math Institute. You can get some of these sensors from Heart Math if you really want to measure and track your HRV and train it, not just track it. For me, I'm not such a measurable person. I like to just do the techniques and feel the difference in my life in terms of, I'm not exhausted at the end of the day. I feel so much more peaceful in my life. There's, I would say, about 90% less conflict in my marriage. So if you are someone who likes the linear and you like to measure, I recommend the Heart Math equipment, but you don't absolutely need it. You can do these techniques and you can just experience the difference in your own life as well.
Wow, that's so powerful. I think a lot of people, especially leading up to a big year like this year with an election, and there's just so much divisiveness, and people who have young kids who are feeling overwhelmed and triggered by their kids. So many people need this. And just you saying alone that 2 minutes of experiencing something like that can trigger all of these negative consequences.
Yes.
I don't think people realize that. And I think
No.
a lot of us are walking around feeling agitated or annoyed or whatever it is, or letting something on social media bother us or reacting to something. And it's like, well, you might think you're doing something, but you're really just hurting yourself. And I don't think people realize that.
Yeah. And you ladies, bring so much knowledge to the forefront around, hey, let's take care of our hormones. Let's take care of our health. And me too. I started off as a nutritionist. So there's all these physical things like, let me do the seed cycling. Let me eat organic food. Let me get fiber. Let me get enough sleep. Let me get enough exercise, weight bearing exercise, like all these different things, right? But then there's the unseen things that we're not paying attention to. So like I'm talking about, this is where the physiological, this is where the emotional energy literally has way more impact in some ways than anything we can physically do. And it's so essential that we really start to understand that. And then it becomes a really powerful tool in our tool belt for us to be able to continue to improve our health. And in ways that, it's not buying something, it's not taking more pills, it's something that happens internally. So back to the 5 heart stages. The first is the dark heart, right? Where we're not heart brain aren't talking. We experience a lot of that frustration, that overwhelm. Then the propelled heart, as you're talking about, Kai, on social media, this is very externally focused. Means like we're trying to get our worth and our validation so much by the external world. We're so easily triggered by the news or the election or social media. We're just like, we're not resilient. The big turning point is in the steady heart. So this is stage 3. This means we become more steady no matter what is going on in the outside world. This is where our coherence really starts to go up. It doesn't mean we don't know what's going on. It doesn't mean we don't have to make decisions, pivot and shift, take care of our child, do this or that. But there's just a much deeper sense of anchoredness within. So vitality starts to go up. This is where immunity, gut health, hormonal health can start to go in from the inside. And then the devoted heart is a high state of coherence where we experience more of that love and unconditional, just the love, compassion, and then more emotional intelligence. So our success and our work careers, like everything actually can start to get more easeful and better. And then all the way to the clear heart, which is where we experience the deepest connection and peace.
I have a question, which I'm always curious about, and I think I know the answer, but I'm curious just in your research, what you've come across and your just daily experiences of being who you are. We've all been in a situation where somebody just sucks the energy out of the room, right? Like they're maybe in a not a good place or whatever it is, and they show up to dinner and you're like, gosh, this person is really impacting like the whole atmosphere. They're impacting me. Now I feel like I'm in a weird mood and I have to walk on eggshells. Like they just energy vampire, whatever you want to call it. Now, can we do the reverse? Can we have a situation in which we are coherent in our hearts and that essentially serves as a magnet to transform the feelings of the people around us in a more positive way?
Yes. So this is such a powerful question because one of the things that impacts our energy the most is our environment, including the people around us. So first of all, we want to, as we go into our heart's intuition, we want to be more discerning who we spend a lot of time with. And we want to be more aware of, I don't have to say yes to everything. This person's actually quite depleting. Now, it doesn't mean we cut people off like relatives, but there is science to what you're saying. And this is on page 45. See, this is the Taurus field of the heart. So what's amazing is everything is made of energy. Everything is electromagnetic frequencies, and this includes the heart field, which is the strength of 100 times the brains. So what does this mean? This means that there is sensitive equipment called magnetometers, which can measure someone's energy. This means the vibe you're talking about, Kaya, can actually be measured on equipment. So this means when and this is influenced by our emotional state, this is influenced by our level of coherence. So if someone is what you're describing, like, kind of dark, they're in an incoherent state. And since all of us register energetic fields, you will feel that. Now, a couple of things here. From a relationship standpoint, I'm sure you guys have friends. I have friends that are always trying to find love. Maybe they attract the same kind of person. I used to do that too. Even if you say you want healthy love, if you are incoherent, your energy doesn't lie. And so you will tend to either attract someone with a similar energetic field. That's why you see people that are, they had whatever, the abuse from the parent or whatever, and then they attract that similar relationship as an adult or the same kind of pattern over and over again because energy doesn't lie. So even if you consciously want something, you have to work on the energetic level to change it, to attract that healthy love. And that's what happened to me. When I became more steady, that's when I attracted the really deep, fulfilling relationship with my husband. So number one is we need to be aware of our energy. Number two, you will change your field as you become coherent. Guess what? Your perceptions change and how people perceive you changes. And that's why this is so powerful because you actually become more magnetic. Opportunities can come to you, helpful people, situations. The field changes. Number three, Kaya, as you become more coherent, you become more resilient to other people's energy because your strength of your field is stronger. So like I said, as you become into steady and then devoted, you're in such a resilient place of coherence. You will notice, that person has that energy or something's going on with them, but you don't have to be pulled into the drama in the same way. This is why it's very good to do the heart aligned meditation, that 8-minute meditation in the morning to get more coherent before you go on social media. For example, if you go on first thing and you're kind of like, wishy-washy or, not as coherent in the morning, you're more susceptible or going on the news or whatever it is. You want to build the strength of your field. I do some of these practices, the heart aligned steady in life, under a minute. I do it before I go into a party or into a function or event where you're around a lot of people's energy. One of the best ways you can protect yourself is to get more coherent. And there's real science to this. And these practices and these tools are evidence-based.
Wow, I'm just imagining if we all like had that machine and we're measuring people's vibes, like telling them like
you don't even need to. You can feel it, right?
Yeah.
We are intuitive, and sometimes and that's the thing. When you get to the devoted heart, there's a lot of science to how we increase our access to our intuition, because a lot of times we don't know when we're incoherent, if it's the heart talking or the ego. Sometimes we feel like the heart led us wrong, but actually these erratic emotions, the anger or the frustration or the jealousy, this is coming from the ego mind. The heart intelligence is calm and expansive, and it finds unity and it finds peace. It finds the way to connect. And it's not that like that erratic pattern I showed you guys. That's coming from the mind alone, unharnessed to the power of the heart. So those are incoherent states.
This might be a silly question, but as you're speaking, I'm kind of thinking about my husband, who is Kaya's brother, my husband, and his baseline is very calm. Like I think he has a good connection, coherence. And I look at him and I'm just curious, as someone who's written a children's book, like how can we all be just so different? Is it like upbringing? Is it, I know, now we talked about environmental factors and lifestyle, but I love to always reflect back on why we are the way we are. Maybe I think too much about that, but I'd just be curious, as someone who is doing a deep dive into children and,
Yes.
raising them in a certain way. I'm just curious if that
and to add on to that, is there a difference between men and women?
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
That's a great question.
I heard you guys also talking about meditation a little bit. And I also want to say that I've been meditating for 15 years, ladies, and tried so many different things. And there's some of the techniques here incorporate Paramahansa Yogananda, who we talked about in the last interview, who brought yoga to the West. There's these really potent techniques combined with the science. And this is where I feel like, oh my gosh, this is such a different type of meditation, not disassociative. It's not just made up in modern times. There's so much to it. So I'm really excited for you guys to try this particular heart aligned meditation, which we did in the study, because if you do it sometimes, your coherence goes up. So it will change your life after you're done meditating, right? Versus just in that moment. Now, also to answer your question about why we're so different. So this is where we don't know exactly, our soul's path, like from a spiritual, energetic level. You see two siblings raised in the same household with the same parents that have very different temperaments. My sons are very different energies, right? We don't know. There's the factor when they were conceived and when they were born, and star signs, and just different genetic constitutions. We might have been in a different state when we were pregnant with that child. So we don't know exactly what it is, depending on beliefs about ancestral lineage, past lives, whatever it is. All we know is that each of us are a unique blueprint, and we're each of us on a different heart's journey. And what's amazing about this work in the 5 hearts is I say that, right? Our journey is going to be different than everyone else's. There may be periods where you really feel like you're in that steady heart stage, but you may go back to a dark heart moment. There's like a flash of darkness just from you shedding more of what you're not, old identifications, old patterns. So it's really important just to not compare on this heart journey, and not to be like, oh, that person's better than me, or my husband is so much calmer. Like, why am I like this? How we are. And when we celebrate that beautiful uniqueness, then we can start to deepen in and awaken our own hearts. And really, I will say, ladies, in the world that we live in today, there's nothing more powerful than awakening your own heart, because all fields intersect. That's the most powerful thing I think we can do to play a part in a more peaceful, forward society. Because when you awaken your heart, you start to change your family, your children, the people you work with, the people you interact with, right? And then everything starts to get more coherent as a society. So when Swami Sri Yukteswar talked about these stages, which are laid out in the Vedas, and again, correspond to the science, he said there's periods of time where most of society will be in the dark heart, which kind of feels like where we are right now. But imagine how we can, more of a shift, we can come into more of a devoted heart, more of a steady heart, and how different society would be. So I really feel like the world needs more heart right now, not just in a sentimental way, but heart, like we're talking about, deep wisdom, heart intelligence, more coherence, and it will change the world.
I'm curious how you, as somebody who's been so successful too in your career and with your business as well, how are you bringing this into just your career work? Because sometimes I can get into a space where I feel so much more coherent. I'm in touch with my spirituality. I just feel overall more steady. And then I kind of can go into a work environment and either I'm very easily taken out of it or I just don't know how to match other people's energy. It's like when people go to, I haven't been to Burning Man, but people go to Burning Man and then they get like depressed after because they're like, oh, I experienced this beautiful, blissful thing and I don't know how to bring it back into the real world. Can you talk about that? I don't know if that makes sense, but.
Makes total sense, because until we steady ourselves deeper and deeper, we're subject to the fluctuations of the outside world. This environment, I got triggered. I went to this thing and I felt like the other people were smarter, or this huge experience of Burning Man. And now I can't find that joy in daily life. It's up and down, up and down. So this work is so internal. And as we deepen here and you do these heart coherence techniques, your whole outer world changes. So I'll give you an example. In my business, Solluna, my wellness brand, there's so much more harmony and connection with the team. And I feel like my coherence, and I share this work with everyone's more coherent. We're rebuilding a new website now. This is the second time we've done it. In the past, it's felt really arduous and like with the right people and stuff. It's just this beautiful, smooth project where, harmony is the opposite of stress, as you mentioned, Yasmin. So the heart align, harmonize with life is that technique in the propelled heart where you're harmonizing moment to moment. This isn't like I'm there, right? Every moment we're harmonizing. I feel like as I've awakened my heart, what happens is we feel this wholeness inside of us. So we stop identifying with lack. So it changes your heart field. And I'll tell you guys something amazing that happened 2 days ago. I just feel like this connection, like I'm connected to everyone else. Guess what? I got the book directly to Tony Robbins.
Amazing.
And he gave me the most amazing endorsement for this book. Like it got straight to him. Wow. And then he left me this voice note being like, yeah, I'll support this book. This is amazing. And then 2 hours later, he sent me an endorsement, right? So in the past, I'd be like, oh, this person's like so hard to get to, or like, I can't connect to this or whatever. Well, this is what I mean about stepping into our power. It means this is a field of no lack, beyond comparison, beyond judgment, beyond self-doubt. This is the real confidence because the heart energy is whole, it's complete. It's not based on what we look like or all these little things that the mind tries to base things on. We're stepping literally into a different field of potential. And I mean potential in all ways: physical health, your vitality, your work success, your levels of, like I said, it's, the thing that I hold the dearest to my heart is my own levels of peace, and also my family life has just gotten, like, the love between me and my husband, the connection. You get rid of all the petty drama and the tantrums that take so long. As I've taught this to work to my children, we come back faster and faster. It doesn't mean we don't get triggered. It doesn't mean we're not human and we don't experience those dark moments or that the external stuff doesn't bother us, but we come back much faster. Come back. We have these tools. The heart becomes that anchor. So as you're describing love, like still feeling it, that's okay. That's part of the human journey. But when you do this work, it is possible to get more and more steady in yourself. And it will completely change your day, from work to family life to how you interact with social media to everything.
Man, I'm so sold on this. And it's interesting because I'm so excited to even dig more into your book. But I remember a few years ago, right when Kay and I just started our company. So this was like very early in our journey. I was trying to figure out how to balance everything. We didn't have a team. It was a lot more intense in the early days. And I remember talking to a few founders, and they really talked about heart math, how they did it and what impact it's made. And obviously now, as you speak more about it and how you're working with them on the research that you did, I'm like, this all makes sense. I've heard it from other people. I hear it from your experience. And I'm so inspired. And I'm curious, going back to what you said earlier in the interview, you said that the research you guys did was this 8-minute heart aligned meditation. When people did it 4 times a week, within a month, they saw an impact.
Yes, yes. So let's go back to that for a moment. So I ran the study with Dr. Roland McCready, who's the director of research at HeartMath. And so what we did was we had the equipment. People had to physically come in to be measured. And then we gave them the meditation tract that's on the website, mysolluna.com, the same one. They were to go home or in their home in the morning, preferably do this meditation tract 4 to 5 times a week. That's it. That's all they did differently. There was no change to diet, lifestyle, sleep, anything else. In 30 days, we brought them back into the lab and measured them. There was an average of 29% increase in coherence, of getting into that coherent state, and a 10% difference in their baseline. So what does that mean? That means in 1 month, they basically reprogrammed their nervous system. So imagine if they kept going, we did the study for 2 months, how much different their lives would be in 2 months. 20, that's almost a third more coherence. So taking it back to what that really means, that means clarity, energy, focus, emotional intelligence, stress resilience, all these things that we're trying to create, hormonal balance, better gut health, more immunity, more fulfillment, better, more aligned thoughts, peaceful thoughts, 30% better in 1 month. So I'm like, whoa, people really need to know about this. Really, this can make such a difference in people's lives. It's made such a difference in my life.
Wow. I mean, I can't imagine this book coming out at any better of a time, honestly. I think it's coming out at the perfect time for this world, and we're so excited to share it with everyone. I'm excited to read all of it. We just got our copies, so we just started, but I'm going to definitely dive into it. Just to kind of wrap us up, is there anything that you can guide us in our community through right now, or would it be better for us to kind of refer to the website?
Yes. So thank you so much, love, for saying that. I am offering something very special that I have never offered before, and that is a 4-week heart reset immersion program. So just by pre-ordering the book, and so it'll be available by the time this airs, I think 5 or 6 more days. Just by pre-ordering The Hidden Power of the 5 Hearts, you will gain access into this program. It's going to run from the end of September through October. So every week you'll get on a live Zoom with me. I will guide you through these different topics like increasing your health, your stress resilience, optimizing your relationship, so on and so forth. There'll be videos, there'll be worksheets, there'll be follow-up emails. It will be so amazing. So not only will you actually have the book and the tools, but you will have me as your guide. And by pre-ordering the book, you'll also get my whole Heart Awakening recipe ebook as an accompaniment to the book. So you can instantly start to make these amazing foods and Heart Awakening recipes. So I'm really excited to offer this. I feel like this is the most powerful way to get into this work. I'm also doing it over 4 weeks because, to your point, Yasmin, that is how long we did the study, where we saw so much improvement in 1 month. So it's like, jump in, do this 1 month. You can watch the playbacks like any Zoom if you can't make the lives. And I invite you, anyone listening to this, I feel like we're meant to be here. I would love to guide you through. So, personally inviting you in. I think it's going to be amazing and life-changing.
Incredible. Well, we will share the link to that to anybody who's listening. I definitely want to sign up. Yep. And I'm so excited for your book and everything that you're doing. And thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you for your big hearts. Really appreciate you both.